How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the son of the Egyptian goddess and got harem older women's, part 1. Huge shout out to the mighty Venom13 for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Our story stars in a land covered in snow, with 5 large panels that look to be covered in ice standing tall. A small hut could be seen in the middle of this field. A man dressed in some kind of armor was walking towards this hut, as a woman with black hair, fair skin and light blue eyes stared at him with cold eyes. This man is Doto Kazuhana and the woman is his niece Koki Kazuhana. Doto walking into the hut slid what looked like a crystal into a slot and smiled when a loud humming could be heard. Taking several steps back, he looked around expecting riches to appear but got very angry when the 5 panels just started to glow and slowly the ice and snow started to melt. Snarling, he said, "This is the treasure." Koki, watching all of this, said, "Spring." Snarling, he turned to say something to her when a loud masculine voice said, "Koki!" Both people turned and Koki gasped, spotting our hero, a 13-year-old boy with a head full of spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, tan skin and 3 whisker-like marks on each side of his face. Doto, snarling, asked, "You just don't know when to quit, do you, brat?" The boy said, "I don't ever give up." Doto, snarling, went through hand signs and said, "Black Dragon Blizzard Jutsu." He then sent a dragon-shaped attack at the boy and it launched the boy backwards. Koki screamed, "Naruto!" The boy, getting back to his feet, said, "It's take more than that you defeat me, you stupid head." Doto, snarling, asked, "Is the device messing up?" Naruto, running towards Doto, blinked when said man was in front of him and connected a jaw-shattering punch to his face. This kicked up a huge cloud of white smoke, because it was snow. When the smoke cleared, a huge hole could be seen showing the water that had been underneath the ice. Koki, having seen this, gasped. Doto, turning back to her, was walking forward planning on killing her when he suddenly turned around as a black-haired boy, with blazing red eyes, charged towards him with a lightning-covered hand. He, jumping, cried out, "Chidori!" Doto's armor activated and tried to absorb the attack. It did absorb most of it, but in the process his armor cracked. The boy was then kicked by Doto and collided with a panel. He, sliding down, said, "His armor is cracked. It's all up to you now, Naruto." Doto, snarling, turned back to Koki and said, "I'm gonna kill you, fish." Koki, hearing this, was ready to accept her death. Naruto, sinking lower and lower into the water, had his eyes closed as he wondered what the hell was taking the 9 tails so long. He blinked, finding himself no longer under the water. Instead, he was inside some kind of temple. This temple looked ancient and for some reason brand new at the same time. He, looking around, could see pictures carved into the walls, but both sides were different. One side had a strange red symbol, while the other side had what looked like women with animal parts. This confused the hell out of him. Shaking his head, he stood up and decided to find the center of this temple, as maybe it would let him know where he was. He, walking past by many more carvings, most showing a woman with animal parts or some kind of awesome-looking creature fighting alongside a human. He then passed by 2 symbols, one being an upside-down red triangle, while the other kinda looked like a flame. These 2 symbols were the last carvings, as he was now in the center of the temple. His eyes widened into circles, spotting a gorgeous woman sitting in the middle of the temple. This woman had long flowing red, orange and yellow hair that almost moved like flames. Her skin was flawless and pale. Her face was heart-shaped and made most of the women in his village look like shit. Her eyes were closed so he could see the thick black makeup she had around each eye. Her ears weren't round like his. Instead, they were pointed and lovely. Her lips, which had a layer of red lipstick on it, were plump and lovely. Her body was like an hourglass, as she had the perfectly balanced body. She was dressed in a black, white and gray kimono that did nothing to hide her impressive figure. Naruto, realizing that this gorgeous woman could be an enemy or the Kyuubi in disguise, reached for a kunai or shuriken, but blinked as he didn't have a weapon on him or anything besides his clothes for that matter. Gulping, he dropped into a fighting stance and was about to ask who she was, when she opened her eyes to reveal pools of yellow, with her pupils being a mix of red and orange. She, locking eyes with him, shocked him by smiling. She then spoke and her voice was like silk. She had said, "Naruto-chan, my precious child." This statement shocked the hell out of Naruto, before he narrowed his eyes and growled out, "Not falling for this shit again, lady. Get the hell on." The woman, sighing, said, "I assure you I'm not trying to lure you into a false sense of security, nor am I trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I am truly your mother and I can prove it." Naruto, having a dubious look on his face, crossed his arms and said, "Show me this supposed proof." The woman, nodding, snapped her fingers and Naruto blinked as the walls started showing him a video. His eyes widened, spotting the events of his birth, not only revealing who his father was, but the reason the Kyuubi attacked the village. He then watched as his father sealed the fox inside of him, ignoring her, begging him not to do so and to seal it inside of her. Naruto, huffing, said, "That doesn't prove anything." She chuckled and said, "Your true birthmark is the star-shaped mark on your left shoulder, and your name in kanji means maelstrom, not fish cake. Also, you have my legendary temper, which also comes with my skills at pranks." Naruto blinked as no one, not even the old man, knew about his true birthmark, as he kept it hidden. His eyes widened as he, with a tremble in his voice, asked, "You're really my?" She nodded and smiled when he glomped her and started to cry into her kimono. She, wrapping her arms around him, rubbed soothing circles into his back and said, "I'm so sorry, my precious maelstrom. Your stupid bastard father ignored my wishes and sealed that mangy fox inside of you." Naruto, crying into her kimono, sniffled out, "Why am I just meeting you, and why didn't anyone tell me?" She answered with, "Because it took this long for my true body to reform, and I have no clue why Kakashi nor anyone else never told you, but believe me, I will find out." Naruto, hearing the word true body, blinked and asked, "What do you mean, true body?" She, smiling down at him, said, "Baby, most people knew me as Kushina Uzumaki, the red-hot bloody pepper, or the Uzumaki death goddess. In reality, that was only a pseudo-form. My true body is Ra, and I'm an ancient Egyptian goddess of the sun. I, since my creation, have gained several more domains, including flames or fire of any kind, water and ice, lightning and thunder, and nature." Naruto had wide eyes, learning that his mom was a goddess. He then blinked and asked, "What does that mean for me?" She, sending him a smile, said, "It means I need to awaken your godly blood, and you have the Mokuton, Hayaton, and the Enten." Naruto's eyes nearly popped hearing this. She then asked, "Did you notice the carvings in the temple?" He nodded and she said, "Good, as I have recently discovered 2 more domains of mine, and the carvings on the wall depict them. The first domain, the one showing women with animalistic traits, is called poke girls." Naruto blinked and asked, "What's a poke girl?" She smiled and explained it to him and giggled when he blushed brightly. She then said, "The second are called Digimon." She then, predicting his question, explained what a Digimon was to him. He, now understanding, asked, "What does this have to do with me?" She smiled and said, "Baby, I discovered these 2 new domains through my restored connection to you. This means that you most likely have the central digital core inside of you. This means you, my precious maelstrom, have every single Digimon inside of you, making you the most powerful Digimon in existence. You also have the potential to digivolve yourself. I'm going to try and help you activate this part of you so you can finish this mission and have an ace up your sleeve for the upcoming Chunin exams. You also have the perfect poke girl DNA helix, meaning you are essentially a poke girl. Not only are you a poke girl, but you're the poke girl." Naruto, confused, asked, "What do you mean, the poke girl?" She, giving him a motherly smile, said, "Baby, you are the ultimate poke girl, as you have the DNA of every single poke girl in all of time, in every dimension. This makes your potential limitless. If what I'm trying to do right now works, you'll be able to evolve to as many forms as possible and even achieve at the very least 10 legendary forms." Naruto, confused, asked, "What's a legendary?" His mom sighed and then explained what a legendary was. Naruto, with stars for eyes, asked, "What are you trying to do?" She smiled and said, "Flood your chakra pathways with my divine chakra and override the human DNA inside of you, allowing this to happen." Naruto blinked and titled his head to the side. He then asked, "Is what you're trying to do gonna hurt?" Kushina, squealing on the inside at the absolutely adorable thing her son had just did, said, "No, baby, as you'll be unconscious in your reshaping mindscape, I'm gonna temporarily take over so that your body can adjust and reshape itself to suit your needs. Naruto smiled hearing this and said, Okay, Mom. She giggling set him down and covered him with a blanket as his blue eyes slowly closed. She kissed him on the middle of his forehead and said, Sleep tight, my little maelstrom. Mama is about to get a princess to fall hard for you. She then gained a very serious look on her face as she added, And make a certain Uchiha jealous. She then vanished from the temple as it changed into a beautiful heavily forested clearing, with several animals walking around, or in the case of the snakes slithering around. In the real world, Naruto's body suddenly exploded in a brilliant burst of light. This light shined through the ice, making the advancing Doto turn around. Kakashi, having just arrived with Sakura, was looking down wondering what was going on. Suddenly a figure shot out of the water and landed in front of Sasuke's down form. This figure quickly became visible and Kakashi shit several bricks. Standing in front of Sasuke, radiating immense power, was none other than Kushina Uzumaki, otherwise known as the Uzumaki Death God. Kushina, ignoring the palpable fear rolling off of Kakashi in waves, set her eyes on Doto, and said, Good, my conversation with Sochi-kun didn't take too much time. Sakura and Koiki, confused, wondered who this lady was and who was her Sochi. Kakashi, on the other hand, shit even more bricks as this wasn't just an illusion, and Kushina was really in front of him, and she had told Naruto what he didn't know. Doto, snarling, asked, Who are you, bitch, and where did that stupid brat go? Kushina, hearing this, said, My son isn't a stupid brat, you arrogant trash, and as for who I am. She, lifting up her hand, watched as thick roots came out of the ground and wrapped around Doto tightly. She then, with venom in her voice, said, It doesn't matter, as you're about to die, as I'm about to perfect and demonstrate my child's third original jutsu, this one not meant to deal with perverts. She then snapped her fingers and everyone gasped when several small blue flames appeared and started to circle the trapped Doto. Kushina, closing her eyes, said, Face judgment and perish for your sins. Uzumaki Hijitsu, Combination Jutsu, Legend of the Ghost Rider Jutsu. Everyone's eyes widened when the flames combined to form a skeletal figure dressed in a leather biker jacket, jeans and chains. This figure had a blue flaming head and blue flaming eyes. This figure looked eyes with Doto, and suddenly the corrupt man started to scream as his body slowly but surely started to turn into smoldering ash. When the jutsu ended, Kushina dropped the jutsu and, inspecting the results, whistled and said, Sochi-kun's jutsu is definitely an A rank or above jutsu. She then, turning to the wide-eyed Koiki, smiled and said, Pleasure to meet you, Koiki. It seems as my Sochi is quite smitten with you, unlike his fake crush on that pink-haired thing standing by Kakashi. Koiki blinked and then asked, Who are you and who is this Sochi you're talking about? Kushina giggled and said, Why, none other than my little ball of sunshine, Naruto Uzumaki, prince and heir of the Uzumaki clan. As for who I am, my name is Kushina, but you can call me R.A. She then smiled as Koiki's eyes widened and a blush quickly hit the woman's face. Kushina was easily able to ignore the shocked and slightly hurt feeling she could feel coming from Sakura. She then, rounding on the now terrified Kakashi with a sickly sweet smile, said, Now then, I have some questions for you, Kakashi-kun, and you're gonna answer them, or I'm gonna castrate you with a dull rusty kunai. Kakashi, hearing this very real threat, became so pale he was starting to blend in with the snow. A week later, and Team 7 was almost back to Konoha. Sasuke, like usual, was brooding as he thought of ways to get stronger. Kakashi was reading his smut, but you could tell he wasn't absorbed in said book. Sakura was actually sulking as she was still mulling over what Kushina had revealed about her plan B. She was shocked that Naruto's crush on her was completely and utterly false. Naruto himself was starting to exhibit some traits of his new shared domains with his mother. Like, for instance, his face had changed from chubby and almost tomato-like to being slim, angular, and slightly heart-shaped. His formerly dark blue eyes had lightened to the point that they were almost the same color as the sky. His hair had actually grown past his headband and now hung to his shoulders. Said hair had changed from the sunshine blonde everyone was used to, into a loving red with a few black streaks. His skin had also lightened to the point that he was now fair-skinned. He also now had a red triangle that was pointing down that was surrounded by 3 smaller black triangles on each side. This tattoo was now in the middle of his forehead. The rest of his body had yet to change, well, except for his muscles had become more compact. Naruto was reading over the scroll Koyoki had made him sign. A blush was on his face as apparently she had forced him to sign a marriage contract between himself and her, and this contract was the only way Spring would open trade relations with Konoha. Putting the scroll away, he put his hands behind his head and smiled as Koki had given him a set of chakra armor to wear instead of his orange jumpsuit. She had also taken him shopping, not wanting him to basically be a beacon for his enemies to hone in on. Now he was wearing black sleeveless shirt that she had his custom whirlpool crafted on the back. His arms was covered by the chakra armor that was being fed a constant stream of his own chakra to make it stronger. He had on blood-red fingerless gloves on, that had the symbol his mother had called the digital biohazard symbol. It was one big black equilateral triangle over a smaller black equilateral triangle that was pointing down. On the left and right of the first triangle was two even smaller black equilateral triangles. She had informed him that this symbol along with his new tattoo were very important for some reason. When he had asked her, she had giggled and said he'd find out later. He had on a pair of long black pants that were rolled up around his feet, as she didn't get him any shoes for some reason. His mom had actually explained why she didn't get any shoes, as apparently his skin had become as tough as diamonds to cut. This had made him smirk as he didn't have shoes weighing him down anymore. He did have several weight and gravity seals on him though, as Kushina had decided he was too slow and not strong enough. She had fixed this with seals though. She had also helped him perfect and learn his jutsu. He smirked as his jutsu had 4 levels now, with the first level being ranked by his mom. The other 3 were S rank and all 4 were considered assassination jutsu. Naruto then cut his eyes to Kakashi being tired and fed up with his training of Sasuke alone. Stopping and gaining the attention of the rest of Team 7, Naruto said, "Kakashi-sensei, this is your absolute last chance. Train me." Kakashi sighing said, "No, Naruto. Get your chakra under control and then I'll think about training you." Naruto hearing this pursed his lips and said, "All right then." He then continued walking, already planning on getting someone else to train him. He was sure Irika or the old man had an idea on who to train him. An hour later, after checking in and getting the week off, Naruto was exploring his new home, as his mom had informed him of the home she and his father had left him. It was very big and Naruto was pretty damn sure he'd be able to fit at least 30 people into the home, before having to move some people to the other homes on the estate. He, finding the master bedroom, smiled and picked up the picture of his parents. He didn't really care about Minato, but his mom was now in his life and very important to him. He, setting the picture down, decided it was time for some ramen. Walking out of his new home, he was on his way to Ichiraku Ramen to get the food of the gods from his second favorite old man and his sweet as a cherry pie daughter. He ignored how the civilians sent withering glares at him, as absolutely nothing could get him down. Arriving at his favorite stand, he entered and took his usual seat. He then, with a big smile on his face, said, "Tucci, let me get 10 bowls of the Naruto special." Tucci, looking at the change, Naruto instantly recognized his favorite customer and said, "You got it, Naruto." Naruto, beaming, noticed the lack of a certain waitress and asked, "Where's Ayam-chan?" Tucci said, "Out on a date. She should be back any moment if I know her." Naruto, confused, shrugged and started to play with his cool new armor. Seconds later, Ayam Ichiraku walked into the stand, a pissed-off look on her face as she said, "Stupid pervert." Naruto, having just been given his first bowl, blinked and asked, "What's wrong, Ayam-chan?" Ayam blinked, hearing the voice of her favorite customer. Turning, she smiled and asked, "When did you get back, Naruto-kun?" He, smiling back, said, "I got back a few hours ago and decided to come get some of the best food in the world made by the prettiest girl in the entire world." Ayam, beamed, hearing the praise and kissing Naruto on the cheek, said, "You always know just how to make me beam." She then went to helping her father with Naruto's food. Said boy, used to getting kisses like that from Ayam, actually started to think about the very slim pickings for girlfriends in the village. He didn't like Sakura like that, and Ino was too far up Sasuke's ass for him to like. Hinata was his creepy stalker, and he didn't really like her that much. This left the bun-haired girl he saw training with the green-wearing fruitcake guy. He then remembered that she seemed to look at the Hyuga boy on her team like Sasuke's fangirls did him. This meant she most likely had a crush on the Hyuga. Sighing, Naruto figured out he was out of luck when it came to women or females in Konoha and had better try his luck outside of the village. I am hearing his side blinked and asked, "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" Naruto said, "I just realized that my best shot at getting a girlfriend is only if they're not from this village." I am frowning at his logic and knowing a lot of females who would love to be with him, as he was the perfect boyfriend material, said, "I don't see that, Naruto-kun, as many of the females I know, me included, would love to have you as a boyfriend, as 1, you're so kind and caring, 2, you're handsome, and 3, you're not a pervert. That last one alone could get you date with over half of the women in Konoha alone." Naruto, blinking, asked, "You would go out with me, I-am-chan?" I am, nodding, said, "Sure would, and I'd be willing to share, knowing that guys like you come around once in a lifetime. I'd also spoil you rotten with my love and affection." Naruto, with a smile on his face, said, "Thanks, I-am-chan. You just gave me the perfect idea." I am, quirking an eyebrow, asked, "What is it?" Naruto, I smiling, said, "There's a lot of women older than me that need a good boyfriend like me, and I'm more than happy to help them out." He then, jumping out of his chair and slapping down a lot of money, said, "But first I need to talk to either Irika or the old man about getting me a better sensei, as Kakashi refused to train me and only focuses on Sasuke team." He then left the stand, missing the face palm of Iam and the sweat drop of Tucci. Iam, shaking her head, said, "He's so cute, but damn if he isn't dense." Tucci, chuckling, said, "Don't worry, Iam, I'm sure you're the first older woman he asks out." Iam, blushing, said, "Dad?" Naruto, now in the Hokage's office, was watching with a happy smile as the old man chewed Kakashi out. He blanched, though, when Sarutobi said, "Kakashi Hatake, your punishment for such blatant abuse of power is to catch Tora until all 3 genin on Team 7 are jonin." Naruto, hearing this, said, "Hold on, old man, no need to be so mean. Kakashi Baka can just give me some jutsu scrolls or something like that." Sarutobi, hearing this, looked at the now thanking Kami Kakashi and said, "Alright then, Kakashi, you are to give Naruto-kun 20 jutsu scroll of each affinity." Kakashi, hearing this, blinked and nodded, as the other choice was chasing and trying to catch that damn cat. Sarutobi then dismissed the man and said, "Now for the matter of your new sensei, Naruto-kun." Naruto was about to say something when the link he shared with his mom became active, and his mom told him that he was going to need a kunoichi as a sensei, as his body was going to go through some changes sooner or later. Blinking, he said, "Gigi, how many kunoichi do you have that can teach me?" Sarutobi, quirking an eyebrow, asked, "It depends." Naruto, curious, asked, "On?" Sarutobi asked, "If you want retired or not." Naruto said, "An active duty kunoichi would be nice." Sarutobi, nodding, already had 3 people on his mind, with one being Anko. He didn't want to do the last one, though, as Naruto was already bad enough, but if Anko started to train him, he feared for not only the villagers, but the entire world. The other 2 were Kurenai and Yugao. He didn't know if Kurenai would be able to teach Naruto anything, as she was mainly a genjutsu specialist, while Yugao would have to take time off from her busy Umbu schedule. Come to think of it, Yugao had been taking a lot of missions lately, and Sarutobi knew it wasn't to buy anything expensive. He, with his elderly wisdom, remembered that Yugao had been in a relationship with his most sickly jonin, one Hate Gecko. Come to think of it, hadn't his foolish son Asuma informed him that Hate had broken up with Yugao? He then nodded and said, "Alright, Naruto-kun, report to Training Ground 6 in 2 hours. Your new sensei will meet you there." Naruto, hearing this, beamed and was about to leave when Sarutobi tossed him a huge wad of cash and said, "Here, go buy yourself something, as this is your cut of the money from the wave mission that Tazuna-san is just now giving Konoha." Turns out he decided to pay Team 7 the amount of a triple S rank mission. You have in your hands, Naruto-kun, over $6 million. Naruto nearly choked hearing how much money he had just been tossed. Nodding, his vanished to go buy something he had always wanted. Well, several things he had always wanted. Naruto, walking into the only music store Konoha had and the best in all of Fire County according to many sources. He walked over to the golden guitar he had wanted since he was 3 and finally grabbed it. Walking over to the counter, he laid down the $20,000 the price said. The woman, easily recognizing him, not because of the Kyubi, but because she was a worshipper of Ra, or Kushina-sama to her most devoted followers. She instantly said, "Naruto-sama." Naruto, confused, asked, "Why did you say Sama?" The woman, moving some of her long brown hair, revealed the tattoo of a golden ink and said, "I am a worshipper of your mother Naruto-sama. It is my duty to know and notice the only child of my mistress." Naruto's sweat dropped hearing this, not knowing anyone still worshipped his mom. He, shaking his head, said, "Okay, strange lady, I'm paying for this guitar now and leaving." The woman, hearing this, looked at the money Naruto had laid down and pushed it back towards him and said, "No, Naruto-sama, I cannot accept this money, as it is my honor to be of service to you." A sweat drop appeared on the back of Naruto's head as he asked, "You do realize you're running a business, right?" She, nodding, said, "I am well aware, Naruto-sama, but my business is very profitable, thus I can afford to give you things from my store, Naruto-sama." The sweat drop got bigger as Naruto said, "Okay, I'm gonna leave now and go buy that cool sword I saw the other week." He then left the shop. The woman, once he was gone, swooned and said, "I was of service to Naruto-sama. I must go get his tattoos placed on my body this instantly in a show of support for Kushina-sama's only child." She then walked out from behind the counter and walked to her shop door. Flipping the sign closed, she grabbed her purse and said, "I'm off." She then left the shop. Naruto, having entered the weapon shop with the cool sword, was happy that it was still there. Grabbing it, he walked to the counter where a rather cute teenage civilian clerk sat. He, coughing to get her attention as she was reading some trashy romance novel, blinked when she looked at him and literally squealed like one of Sasuke's accursed fangirls. He was then glomped by the girl, who said, "Oh my Ra, it's actually you, Naruto-sama. Ra said you would enter my shop to buy that katana she had me forged so long ago, but I didn't think it would actually happen." Naruto, now once again having a sweat drop, wondered just how many people actually worshipped his mom in this village. 2 hours later, Naruto, with his new sword sitting on his hip, had no clue why he didn't leave it home with his guitar, but had the strangest feeling, even though he had never used a sword before, he was going to be terrifyingly good with this one. Shrugging, he walked into the training ground and blinked, spotting his new sensei yet. Shrugging, as this gave him some time to think about which older woman he would try asking out first. He could ask out Kiba's hot sister, but then he'd most likely have to deal with Kiba's whining, and he didn't feel like dealing with that. This sadly also knocked Kiba's equally hot mom out. How about Shikamaru's hot mom? Wait, she was still married to Shikamaru's lazy dad. He had a pout on his face as kept trying to come up with women to ask out on dates. He was so caught in his thoughts he failed to notice his new sensei arrive in a swirl of leaves. The thing was that she wasn't alone. She had 3 other people with her. Yugao, having been told by the Hokage that she wasn't going to have any Anbu mission for a while, but would instead find a eager student to train in Training Ground 6, had sighed and went to her usual spot, meeting her 3 friends there also. They had, after hearing what she had going on, decided to tag along, as Kurinai really couldn't do anything as her team were all doing their own training, even Hinata. Enko had tagged along as she was just bored. Hana was in the same boat. All 4 females blinked, spotting Naruto, who was still engrossed in his thoughts. Yugao, sighing, spotting one of the most hyperactive but nice kids she had ever met, coughed to get his attention. It didn't seem to work, so she tried again. To no avail. She, getting fed up, walked over with her friends, having smirks on their faces, and thumped Naruto. This seemed to snap him out of it, and his blue eyes instantly landed on her. Said blue eyes widened, spotting her, and she wondered why. Naruto, looking at his new sensei, thought he had just died and gone to heaven, spotting the simply divine woman in front of him. She had a heart-shaped face that was framed by her spiky long purple hair. Her black eyes shined with a power and intelligence Naruto couldn't fathom. She had a thin layer of light pink lipstick on her perfect lips, and she was dressed in a simple black shirt and a pair of black tights. On her back was a sword that he could easily tell had seen a lot of action. Did he forget to mention, even with the loose-fitting black shirt she had on, he could make out at least D-cup breast, and she most likely had an ass to die for. Yugao quirked an eyebrow as her new student just stared at her dumbstruck. She asked, "Are you the student Hokage-sama told me about?" Naruto, slowly nodding, was making plans to thank the old man for scoring him such a beautiful sensei later. He hadn't even noticed the snickering ankle, the smirking Hana, or the amused Kurinai. Yugao, ignoring her three friends, said, "My name is Yugao Yuzuki, and from this day forward I am your sensei. You will obey my commands, and hopefully I can make you into a powerful shinobi that apparently Kakashi-senpai was failing to do." Naruto nodded, hearing her but at the same time not hearing her. She rolled her eyes, as this is the exact reason why she didn't want any students in the first place. The males would just stare at her like Naruto was. Well, not really, they would stare at her like she was a piece of meat. Naruto was staring at her like she was gift from a kami. She, noticing the sword on Naruto's hip, blinked and said, "Your file said nothing about you using a sword, nor did Hokage-sama or Kakashi-senpai mention it." Naruto, hearing this, seemed to snap out of his awe and said, "That's because I just got it today and I was going to leave it at home, but something just didn't feel right leaving it. So I brought it." Yugao, hearing this, blinked, as this was how she felt about leaving her sword at home, and wondered if Naruto was a natural-born kenjutsu user like her. She said, "All right then, in order to get a read on you we will have a light spar." "Well, it will be light for me. You, on the other hand, are to come at me with the intent to kill." She then dropped into a stance and gained a dark look on her face that promised pain. She, with an evil smile, said, "Begin." The absolute worst beating in all of Naruto's 12, almost 13 years of life then happened, and by the time it ended Naruto was barely standing, covered in slowly healing cuts and gashes. Most of his shirt and upper armor had been torn to shreds, and both of his hands were covered in his own blood. His headband lay forgotten to the side, as Yugao had knocked it off within the first 5 minutes of the battle. This had let his longer hair come free, covering most of his face. One of Naruto's eyes was shut, and his lip was even busted, but he still had his new sword in his hand. Standing across from him was Yugao, with a not impressed look on her face, while her friends was shocked at how brutal she was being against Naruto. Yugao, looking at Naruto, asked, "Is this it? I expected so much more from the great hero of Wave and Spring." She then, giving him a look he had been given by so many others, said, "I can't believe I wasted my time on someone so weak." Naruto, hearing this, felt an unholy and primal rage fill his body, remembering the villagers saying things like that to him when he was younger, and how so many people thought that him being a genin was fluke. Now completely furious, he had failed to notice that the tattoo on his forehead was actually glowing. This fury quickly manifested itself as a massive aura of energy that was without a doubt not chakra. Killing intent then came barreling out of him as he grabbed his sword once more. He, staring Yugao directly in the eyes, sent shivers of unrestrained fear down her spine, as the power in his eyes was literally visible. Naruto then growled out, "I'll show you! I'll show all of you!" He then screamed, and it seemed like the intensity of the sun started to shine down on Naruto. He, still screaming, said, "Get ready! It's time for round 12. He then literally vanished, and only years of instinct allowed Yugao to avoid being sliced in half by a now coated in hellish blue flames sword of Naruto. She quickly had to follow this dodge, with several more, and found herself regretting pushing Naruto this far. She, jumping into the air, knew that she needed to end this or one of her friends might get hurt. Landing with several clones of herself, she said, "I have to knock you out now, but don't worry, you passed my test." She and her clones then said, "Kenjutsu, Dance of the Moon Blade." They all sent attacks at Naruto, who to her shock appeared with his own clones. Naruto, still with furious eyes, said, "Kenjutsu, Howling Thunder Slash." Eyes widened when he and his clones slashed and sent several literally howling blue attacks at Yugao's attack, and to her shock not only clashed with it, but overpowered hers and came straight towards her. She closed her eyes, expecting to be sliced to fine pieces of Yugao. When she didn't feel anything a few minutes later, she opened her eyes and gained wide eyes as a normal Naruto was now grinning at her. She, confused at why he was grinning, blinked when Anko said, "Yugao, you might want to look in a mirror." Yugao, confused, used her sword as a mirror and gasped. There on each side of her face was 3 cuts each, giving her whisker-like marks, identical to the ones Naruto had. Naruto, feeling himself lose consciousness, chuckled and said, "Don't you ever underestimate me. Any of you." His head then slumped as he fell face first into the cold, hard ground. Yugao, hearing what he had said, smirked and said, I think I might like having a student. Anko, no longer bored, asked, You do know he might be pissed at the way you acted when he wakes up, right? Yugao, shrugging, said, When he wakes up I'll apologize, and if that doesn't work, pray to Kami or whoever the civilians pray to now that he doesn't seek revenge. Hana, looking at the damage done to Naruto's attire, and pushing her blush down as Naruto was now putting out a strong scent of alpha, asked, Did you have to completely destroy his clothes, and was it necessary to cover his hands in his own blood? Yugao, putting her sword back on her back, walked over to her downed student and said, Okay, maybe I went a little overboard. Kurinai, giving her a plain look, said, A little. Yugao, he's still covered in various cuts and gashes that are still slowly healing. You sliced open both of his palms 4 times each and ruined his clothes, which he will no doubt have to toss, as they can't be worn anymore with the pants being covered in his blood and the shirt being nothing but rags. Yugao, sweat dropping, said, Okay, maybe Hokage-sama never learns about my little test for him. She then heard a voice that made her pale say, Too bad, I already know Jonin Yugao Yuzuki. She and the other 3 females slowly turned to find a furious Sarutobi Hiruzen giving the 4-seasoned Kunoichi a glare that would make even the Kyubi whimper. Yugao, now very terrified, stuttered out, Hokage-sama, what are you doing here? He, giving her glare, said, I came to see how my surrogate grandson and true inheritor of the will of fire liked his sensei, and to my surprise I come to find the 2 of them locked in a little spar that makes the Yandame's battle with the 4th Raikage look like a temper tantrum from a spoiled brat. Said spar ended up with him knocked out, and most likely requiring a trip to Konoha's hospital. Yugao, now pouring down with sweat, said, It's not what it looks like, Hokage-sama. Her sentence was cut off as Sarutobi said, Be silent, Yugao. You and I will be discussing your test in my office. He then, rounding on the petrified Anko, Hana and Kurinai, said, I will be also having discussions with you 3 for not stopping this supposed spar once you 3 saw how far it got. Now one of you escort Naruto-kun to the hospital and tell them is a code orange. He then turned back to Yugao, who was now even more pale, as she knew what a code orange meant. Sarutobi said, Now then, come, Yugao. He then vanished in a swirl of leaves, while a very terrified Yugao followed in her own shushin. Anko, realizing what Yugao had done, started cursing, as the old man was likely going to have her chasing that damn cat for the next 6 months or something like that. Hana, pale, said, I'm gonna go home and have a cup of tea. She then got the hell out of there, simply terrified of the upcoming talk with the Hokage. Kurinai, groaning at what Yugao had caused, walked over to the unconscious Naruto and picked him up. She was pleasantly surprised at how light he was. She then, grabbing his headband, looked down and thought that he was kinda cute, in that raw type of way. She then vanished in a swirl of leaves to take Naruto to the hospital. In the Hokage's office, Yugao was being chewed out like never before by Sarutobi. The man was very pissed at the asinine thing she had done, for several reasons. The first was because of the stupid and brutal test she had given to his grandson in all but blood. The second was because she was supposed to be a jonin, and knew better than to do something so stupid. Third was his grandson was the only reason or way Konoha had a peace and trade treaty with the Land of Spring. Fourth, well, the fourth reason was the same as the first, and he just felt like he needed to say it again. He, winding up, said, You'd better pray to Kami or whoever the civilians worship now that he forgives you and still wants you as his sensei, or you'll be chasing Tora until you're my age. Yugao, hearing this threat, felt a very real shiver go through her body, as that was long time chasing Tora. She was about to say something when he said, You're dismissed and send in Anko. Yugao, nodding, walked out of the room to find a waiting Anko. Yugao, not being able to hide her fear, said, Your turn. Anko, spotting how pale Yugao was, started to curse before heading inside of the room. Anko would come out an hour later just as pale as Yugao, and looking at the waiting Hana, said, Your turn. Hana, gulping, walked inside of the room, terrified out of her mind. With good reason, as 2 out of her 3 friends looked like they had just seen ghosts or death. Kurinai at the hospital with Naruto watched as the nurses finally wheeled the boy into a room. Kurinai, walking forward, asked, How is he? The nurse, sending a strong glare at Kurinai, said, I don't know who attacked him, but if they're ever brought to the hospital, I'm going to personally poison their 4 and feed them laxatives. Naruto-kun's hands are very raw, and he's gonna be wearing bandages on them for the next month at least. He's completely out of chakra, which has never happened before. His cuts and gashes have been covered but are still slowly healing, which is strange considering his condition and how quickly he normally heals. Kurenai flinched hearing all of this and asked, "Is he awake?" The nurse sighing said, "Sadly he is, so we had to strap him down to keep him from trying to escape." Kurenai, knowing that she had some time to kill before she was called before the Hokage, said, "Can he have visitors?" The nurse, nodding, said, "Sure." Kurenai, hearing this, walked inside of the room and spotted Naruto strapped to the bed covered in bandages. His blue eyes locked on her, and she watched the same look he had when he first saw Yugao appear. She wondered why he looked at her like that. Naruto, once again finding himself in the company of a gorgeous woman, wondered if this was karma finally coming around. Kurenai, ignoring this, asked, "How are you feeling?" Naruto, blinking, said, "Like I went toe-to-toe with another member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist and won." Kurenai, quirking an eyebrow, asked, "You went toe-to-toe with a member of the Swordsmen of the Mist?" He, nodding, said, "I'm not surprised no one has heard of Team 7's first mission outside of the village yet." He, smiling, said, "If you unstrap me, I'll be glad to tell you the story." Kurenai, rolling her eyes, said, "I'm not removing the straps." Naruto, pouting, said, "Fine." He then started telling her the story of Team 7's first mission outside of the village, and by the time he had finished he hadn't even noticed that the straps had actually been removed by a nurse, finding all of his wounds finally healed. Kurenai, having been enthralled in his story, asked, "What happened to Haku's body, and what did you do with Zabuza's sword?" Naruto, smiling, said, "I buried Haku's body in a clearing not far from Tsuna's home so that I can always remember the person who gave me the true reason to become Hokage and get as strong as possible. As for Zabuza's sword, I had a spare sealing scroll, so I sealed it in it, and hid the scroll somewhere in my former apartment. Actually, it's now hidden in my new home. I should probably find someone to give it to." Kurenai, amazed by the story, asked, "Why don't you use it yourself?" Naruto said, "Because it weighs more than I do and lifting up almost tired me out." Kurenai, hearing this, giggled and Naruto swooned as her laugh sounded like an angel's laugh. Kurenai, noticing this, asked, "Why are you staring at me like that?" Naruto blushed and said, "I have no clue what you're talking about." Kurenai, rolling her eyes, glanced at the clock and knew it was her time to face the wrath of the Hokage. Getting up, she said, "Well, I have to go now, but it was nice talking with you." Naruto, hearing this, gained wide eyes, and before his mind could stop him, he cried out, "Wait!" She turned to him and asked, "What is it?" Naruto, blushing once more, decided to go for it and asked, "Would you maybe kinda like to go out for some dinner or lunch sometime?" Kurenai blinked several times and gained wide eyes as Naruto had just asked her out. Her mind quickly started having a small-scale war, trying to figure out if she should or not. One side wanted to turn him down because of how much younger than her he was. The other side wanted to say yes, as he was a kind boy and rather cute, plus the story he had just told her was amazing and captured her attention. One last side, agreeing with the side wanting to say yes, figured that if she went out on date with him, the Hokage would go easy on her. Naruto, looking at her, was wondering why she hadn't responded yet. Kurenai, coming a decision, smiled and said, "Sure." He, hearing her say yes, smiled brightly and said, "Awesome. I'll pick you up tomorrow and I promise we'll go somewhere besides Ichiraku's." He then, with his returned energy, ran out of the room with a bright and happy smile on his face. Kurenai, giggling, said, "He didn't even find out where I lived." Shook her head as she now had to face the music, as the Hokage was most likely waiting for her. The next day, Naruto, walking towards Training Ground 7, was ready for some training with Yugao so then he could catch lunch with Kurenai. Just thinking about the gorgeous black-haired woman made his face break out into a huge smile. Arriving at the training ground, he blinked, spotting Yugao already there. Yugao, spotting him, gulped, as this was the moment of truth and would decide if she was going to be chasing Tora until her 60s. Naruto, walking up to her, asked, "What's on the menu for today, Yugao-sensei?" Hearing him call her sensei made Yugao feel a lot of relief and asked, "You still want me as your sensei?" Naruto quirked an eyebrow and said, "Of course." Asked, "But what about yesterday?" Naruto, giving her a plain look, said, "Yesterday was the worst ass kicking in my 12 years of life, But it was also very cool, as I finally found out how I stack up against an elite jonin. Kakashi Baka only ever trained Sasuke teams, so I never knew where I stood. He then bowing said, "For that I am grateful, Yugao-sensei, and I promise to obey your commands and learn as much as I can from you." Yugao hearing this smiled, as this meant she didn't have to chase that damn cat for the next 60 years. Laughing she said, "You don't have to bow to me, Naruto-kun. You did very well yesterday. I only pushed you because I needed to know your resolve." Naruto stopping his bow and asked, "How was it?" She giving him a dazzling smile said, "I'm gonna enjoy having you as my student." Naruto blushed at her smile. She ignoring this said, "Now the first thing we're gonna work on is your horrible taijutsu." Naruto turning back to her said, "Hey, don't call my taijutsu horrible. I made it myself." Yugao hearing this blinked and asked, "Are you serious?" He nodded and said, "Yeah, I made it myself because the teachers in the academy refused to teach me any taijutsu and Kakashi Baka was too far up. Sasuke teams asked to help." Yugao was now both very impressed at Naruto's willpower and pissed at Kakashi, as he obviously failed to notice the pure genius that is Naruto, and asked, "What else did you make yourself, Naruto?" He smiling quickly explained what he had made himself, and even demonstrated his first version of the jutsu his mother had used to defeat Doto. Yugao went from being impressed to downright flabbergasted, as Naruto had just proved himself to be a once-in-a-lifetime genius and diamond in the rough. She then became grateful for Naruto forgiving her and that Kakashi was so focused on the Uchiha, as she now had the privilege to help shape and mold what could easily become the next Hokage. She shaking her head looked at the eager Naruto and said, "Alright Naruto-kun, I'm gonna give you the rest of the day off, as I need to prepare some things and maybe get you some tools. Meet me back here tomorrow morning." Naruto nodded and watched as Yugao vanished in a swirl of leaves. Naruto looking up at the sky realized it was almost lunchtime and decided to go find Kurenai for their date. Naruto having tracked down Kurenai was nervous as he stood in front of her door. Shaking his head he knocked on the door. Kurenai hearing someone knocking on her door hoped that it wasn't her ex Asuma trying to ask her out again. She didn't want to be with him as he had chosen his cancer sticks over her. She opening the door gained a pleasant smile spotting a nervous Naruto standing at her door. She said, "I'm glad you found out where I live, Naruto-kun, now we go out on our date." She stopped herself from giggling when Naruto's face burned a bright red hearing her actually call their evening a date. Kurenai smiling asked, "Shall we?" He nodding accepted the arm she held out for him and decided to take her to a dining establishment, and hoped that they would serve him. Entering he was about to say something when the owner, a woman with a golden Egyptian headdress on, spotted him and said, "Oh my Ari Naruto-sama." Naruto blinked and looked at the woman who said, "I am a worshipper of your mother Naruto-sama. Your meal is on the house and you are always welcome here." Naruto beamed hearing this and followed the blushing waitress to a table that actually was very secluded and had a bottle of wine on ice. He remembering what Iruka had told him about dates held Kurenai's chair out for her. Kurenai sitting in the chair smiled as Naruto had held her chair out for her, like such a gentleman. He then sitting down himself blinked when the waitress from before came over with menus and asked, "Will you be drinking the wine tonight, Naruto-sama?" Naruto shaking his head said, "No thank you, I'd much prefer some orange juice or something like that." Kurenai said, "I'd like the wine." The waitress nodding set 2 menus down and said, "Let me know when you're ready to order lunch." She then left to go get the juice for Naruto and a glass for Kurenai. Naruto opening the menu gained wide eyes as this place was expensive as shit. A plate of fish cost $150. Shaking his head he decided to get the shrimp and lobster plate. Kurenai looking at her own menu remembered what the Hokage told her. This date had better be damn good, or she'd be chasing Tora for the next 8 months. She knew it was a much lighter punishment, but she didn't want to have to catch that damn cat for so long. She then decided she would get the steak and lobster plate. Sitting her menu down she decided to make some small talk and asked, "So what made you ask me out?" Naruto blushing said, "A couple of reasons." Kurenai curious asked, "What are they?" Naruto blushing darker said, "Well, first because you seemed like a nice person. Second, you're extremely pretty. Third, Ayam-chan pointed out to me that I'm apparently a good catch and that instead of going after girls my age I should shoot for older women. Kurenai, quirking an eyebrow, asked, So you asked me out to lunch because I'm an older woman? Naruto, quickly shaking his head, said, No, I asked you out because you seem nice and are extremely pretty. I don't care about ages in the grand scheme of things, age is irrelevant. Kurenai blinked hearing him say this, and a smile worked its way on her face as she said, So the fact that I'm your senior by at least 12 years is irrelevant to you? Naruto, nodding, said, As ninja we take dangerous missions every day that could cost us our lives, and if love can be established while amongst the living, the age of the two components is irrelevant as love is timeless and crazy and stupid and blind. He then, scratching his chin, said, Well, that's what Gigi told me when I was little. Kurenai giggled hearing this, as that was true among all ninja. Their lunches then arrived and the two started to eat, while still making small talk. 2 hours later, Naruto, having walked Kurenai back to her place after their date, was walking along thinking about what he could do as he had some time to kill. He was thinking maybe he should go find Shikamaru or someone and hang out like the old times. His plans were suddenly stopped as Konohamaru appeared and said, Yo boss, teach me a jutsu. Naruto, looking at his self-proclaimed rival for the Hokage hat, pondered if he should or not. He then decided he should as he nodded and said, All right, Konohamaru, follow me to a training ground and I shall teach you a new jutsu. Konohamaru, nodding eagerly, followed Naruto to training ground 8. Naruto, once in the training ground, was wondering what he should teach Konohamaru when he got the idea to show Konohamaru the other jutsu floating around in his head. Creating a single shadow clone, he had it walk to the middle of the field. Naruto, then thinking back to the hand signs he saw Sasuke do for his fireball jutsu, stopped on the tiger hand sign. Nodding, he started to slowly move through hand signs as Konohamaru watched with eager eyes. When he got to tiger, Naruto pulled his hand back and said, Fire style, dragon of the mortal flame jutsu. He then thrust his hand forward, hoping that it would work. His hope was answered as from his hand a huge dragon made entirely of flames shot towards the wide-eyed clone. Said clone, not wanting to die, blurred through hand signs and said, Water style, dragon of the crashing tides jutsu. The clone then fired off a huge dragon made entirely of water that collided with Naruto's dragon and created a huge cloud of steam. Naruto, smiling as his clone had just created another jutsu, said, There you go, Kono, 2 for the price of 1. Konohamaru had stars for eyes and asked, Which one will you teach me, boss? Naruto, spotting Iruka behind Konohamaru with a dark aura, said, Neither, as Iruka's about to drag you kicking and screaming back to his class. Konohamaru blinked hearing this answer and suddenly blanched as he slowly turned around to find a pissed-off Iruka, who said, Konohamaru, you shouldn't skip out on my class. Now the entire class will have to hear my lecture twice because of you. He then proceeded to drag the kicking and screaming Konohamaru back to his class. Naruto and the clone both snickered, spotting this, as it was quite funny. He then turned to his clone and asked, So what am I supposed to do? As sensei dismissed me for the day, I already went on a date with Kurenai and Konohamaru is going to be busy for the next 3 hours. The clone, taking up a thinking pose, suddenly gained an evil smile that sent chills down the entire village's spine. The clone, looking at Naruto, asked, How long has it been since you pranked someone? Naruto blinked and said, The last time I pranked someone was when I superglued Iruka to his chair 2 days before the wave mission. He then started to rub his hands as he now had something to occupy the rest of his time until tomorrow, and he even had his first target. He and his clone then started to laugh evilly. The next day, Yugao, having already heard about Naruto's prank spree and having been chewed out by the Hokage for not giving Naruto anything to do, knew better now. She, spotting Naruto walk into the training ground with a fake innocent look on his face, said, Okay, I've figured things out. The first thing we're going to do is hone your taijutsu and get as many flaws out of it as possible. Next, we're gonna work on your chakra control and several chakra control exercises. Following this, we're gonna find out your chakra affinities so that we start building up your jutsu list. Of course, with you being the genius you are, you'll most likely be making your own jutsu. Finally, we'll be working on your sword skills as you're a natural-born kenjutsu user, like me. Naruto nodded each time she spoke, still having the fake innocent look on his face. Yugao then asked, Now that you understand what's with the fake innocent look? Naruto then gained a devilish smile as he said, I may or may not have set up a prank for a certain emo Avenger and a certain purple-haired dango-loving woman, along with a certain one-eyed smut-reading jonin. Yugao blinked hearing this and knowing who all three were asked. Do I want to know? Naruto, shaking his head, said, It's best you don't know, sensei. In fact, we should start that training schedule you set up so I can have an alibi for when the pranks activate. Yugao's sweat dropped and said, Right. The two then got started on their training, with Yugao participating in said training. 2 hours later, and the two had just moved to chakra control exercises when a huge explosion shook the village, and a loud scream of, My ICHA! Could be heard throughout the village. Naruto, with several leaves covering his body, had a smile on his face as the prank he had set up for Kakashi had just been activated, which would set off the others. Yugao, now wearing her sports bra, and also covered in leaves, sweat dropped as whatever had just happened sounded serious. She, taking a look at Naruto, smiled as he seemed to be getting the hang of the leaf exercise. Just as she was about to say something, another explosion rocked the village and a loud screech of Sasuke Yuan could be heard through the village. Naruto chuckled as the emo Avenger was now waist deep in fangirls and was almost completely naked. Plus the seals slapped on the boy kept him from moving. Yugao felt the sweat drop grow, just knowing that this had something to do with Naruto. Shaking her head, she said, Alright, Naruto-kun, let's move on to the water walking exercise. Naruto nodded just as another explosion rocked the village and Anko could be heard screaming, my clothes are on fire! Yugao almost face-faulted hearing this while Naruto started to whistle an innocent tune. Yugao, shaking her head, said, Hokage-sama is gonna chew me out for this, I just know it. 1 week later, and Team 7 was finally meeting again. During this week, Naruto had been training hard with Yugao and quickly went up in skill. He had also created over 20 jutsu for each of his elements. Yugao had nearly fainted when she had found out Naruto had an affinity to every element. She did faint when Naruto revealed to her that he had the Mokuton, the Hayatan, and the Enten. Once she had recovered, she had dragged him to the Hokage's office and made him show the old man. It had been hilarious to watch the old man nearly have an heart attack when Naruto demonstrated his Mokuton by creating a solid wood pipe for him to smoke out of. After that, Naruto had gained another sensei in one Yamato, and man was he creepy. He had some kick-ass jutsu and helped Naruto create some new Mokuton jutsu, but the man was a creep. He had also gone out with Kurinai several more times, and the two of them were officially a couple. Naruto still couldn't fathom how he had managed that. He also found it hilarious that Iruka had called him the man for landing Kurinai. What Naruto had really liked was that Kurinai and Yugao had worked together to get him some more durable clothes, as he didn't feel like walking around in his chakra armor all day. They were the same color, and even the same style as before, but now had fur lining the inside that kept him nice and cozy. Yugao had informed him it was help him stay calm in bad situations. Naruto was pretty sure it was because he had created like 12 kenjutsu for his sensei. His hands now had some Anbu-style armor on them, as gloves or bandages would just be ripped or stained by the end of any fight. It went well with his chakra armor sleeves, as he liked that look, and Kurinai had mentioned it have him this knight-like quality. Sitting on his hip was his sword that he had named Aljuin, or the World Eater. He had named his sword this mainly because he wanted it to be able to instill fear in his enemies, and be the last thing said enemies saw before their world was consumed by blood and darkness. He had honed and refined his kenjutsu and taijutsu. His taijutsu style had been named, and it was called Chaos Fist. Yugao had said it fit. His kenjutsu style, on the other hand, had been named Thursday. Kurinai had found the term while looking up names for his sword in the library. It meant shout in the language of the dragon. Again, it had fit. Another thing that Naruto liked was that he could now play his guitar smoothly, and Kurinai had informed him that he could use it to place enemies in genjutsu. His chakra control had also improved, not so much that he could the regular clone jutsu, but he could do some E-rank jutsu. He had also gotten his first real kiss from Kurinai. It had been after their third date, and Asuma had shown up and insulted her multiple times. Naruto had in turn defended her and pranked the hell out of Asuma. Last time he checked, the man was still trying to get the green out of his teeth. Kurenai had grabbed him when he walked her home and pulled him into a soul-searing kiss that had him seeing southern constellations. She Venom. Pierce the Veil song, really good song by the way. Short though. Anyways, he walked into training ground 7 and snickered, spotting Sasuke with a very angry look on his brooding face, as his innocence had been forcefully taken by his fangirls. Naruto, cutting his eyes to Sakura, blinked as the girls seemed not be paying attention to the resident emo Avenger. Kakashi of course wasn't there yet, so Naruto had at least an hour to kill. Closing his eyes, he started to meditate, and was focusing his chakra to the tattoo on his forehead, trying to see if he could get it to do anything. He failed to notice Sasuke noticing him. The ever-arrogant emo, spotting the person responsible for him being raped by his rabid fangirls, glared and said, "Dobe." Naruto easily ignored Sasuke, as he was focused on trying to get his tattoo to do something. Sasuke, growling, said once more, "Dobe." Again he was ignored as Naruto was absorbed in whatever he was trying to do. Sasuke, now pissed, said, "Dobe." Naruto, finally registering the fact that the arrogant emo Avenger was trying to get his attention. Cracking open an eye, he asked, "What is it that you want, team?" Sasuke, glaring at him, said, "I know it was you who pulled that prank on me, and I will get you back." Naruto, giving him a plain look, said, "Team, I was training with my sensei when the prank happened. I was nowhere near you when it happened, so I find your theory flawed." Sasuke, growling, said, "It doesn't matter if you find my theory flawed, Dobe. I know you pulled that prank, and I was training with Kakashi-sensei all week." Naruto, rolling his eyes, said, "Kakashi no Eki is only my team sensei. My true sensei has been training with me since we got back from spring." Sasuke and Sakura, hearing this, both blinked, and before the now very jealous Sasuke could say anything, 2 poofs of smoke happened, making all 3 genin turn to them. When the smoke cleared, Naruto smiled, spotting Yugao glaring at Kakashi, who was once again reading his smut. Kakashi, ignoring Yugao's glare, coughed and said, "Alright, my cute little genin. Today we're doing something very special. We will be sparring with another team." Sasuke, blinking, asked, "Which team and why?" Kakashi, turning a page in his book, said, "So I can see just how strong you 3 are in Team 8. Naruto blinked, hearing this, as Kurenai was the sensei to Team 8, plus Hinata, his creepy stalker, was on that team. Sakura, with her eyes on Yugao, asked, "Who is that and why is she here?" Kakashi was about to answer when Yugao said, "My name is Yugao Yuzuki, and I'm here to make sure Kakashi no Baka doesn't try to copy any of my students' jutsu, or anyone's jutsu for that matter." Sakura, blinking, asked, "Who is your student, Yuzuki-san?" Yugao, smiling with obvious pride, pointed directly at Naruto and said, "My once-in-a-lifetime genius student is one Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto, blushing at Yugao's praise, said, "Sensei." Yugao giggled, shocking Kakashi, and said, "Stop being so modest, Naruto-kun, and it's so easy to make you blush." Naruto, huffing, asked, "When will this spar session happen?" Kakashi, I smiled as Team 8 walked in the training ground with Kurenai and said, "Now." Half an hour later, Naruto was in no way shocked or surprised to find himself standing across from Sasuke, who for some reason had the most arrogant smirk on his face. Kakashi, still reading his smut, said, "Alright, this is the last spar of the day, and it's Naruto versus Sasuke. I or Yugao will call the match to an end and you will obey our commands." He then, flipping a page, asked, "Understand?" Naruto, nodding, said, "Sure, Kakashi no Eki." Kakashi ignored Kurenai and Yugao, giggling at this, and asked, "Do you understand, Sasuke?" Sasuke, nodding, said, "I understand perfectly, sensei." Kakashi, nodding, started the match. Sasuke, dropping into his fighting stance and activating his Sharingan, said, "Alright, Dobe, get ready for me to repay you for the stupid prank." Naruto, dropping into the chaos fist, rolled his eyes and said, "I already told you that I couldn't have pulled the prank as I was busy training with Yugao-sensei." Sasuke, snorting, said, "I don't believe you, Dobe, and I'll beat the truth out of you anyway." He then dashed forward at a pretty good speed. Too bad for him, Naruto had been training with Yugao and was easily able to keep up. So, blocking Sasuke's punch, he responded with a gut-wrenching kick that sent Sasuke flying back. Sasuke, holding his stomach, glared at Naruto and asked, "How did you do that, Dobe?" Naruto, I smiling, said, "Trade secret team." Sasuke growling charged towards Naruto and before long to Sakura's, Kakashi's, Kiba's, Shino's and Hinata's shock. Naruto was easily defeating Sasuke and wasn't even struggling to do so. Sasuke, now pissed, said, "Enough playing games, dope. Stop this." He then blurred through hand signs into Kakashi's shocked shot a fire dragon at Naruto. Naruto, noticing this, put his hands in the tiger hand sign and thrust his hand forward. Yugao beamed when Naruto fired his new and improved Dragon of the Mortal Flame Jutsu. Now the dragon wasn't the color of regular flames, but was completely red, increasing its power. Naruto's dragon swallowed Sasuke's jutsu up like a midnight snack and was heading directly for the wide-eyed Sasuke until it veered off and shot into the sky. Naruto, ending his jutsu, glared at Sasuke and asked, "What the hell, team?" Sasuke, growling, was about to go through more hand signs when his hand was suddenly wrapped in chains, and he was forced to his knees. Naruto, appearing with the kunai pressed to his throat, said, "Yield, team." Sasuke, snarling, grudgingly surrendered, making Naruto the victor of the battle. Kakashi, shocked that Sasuke had used such a jutsu on his teammate, glared at the boy. Yugao, on the other hand, was literally glowing with pride as her student had easily defeated the Rookie of the Year. Kurinai, with a smile of her own, was proud of her boyfriend at not only holding his own, but easily defeating the Uchiha. Kiba, with wide eyes, asked, "Whoa, Naruto, that was all kinds of awesome." Shino, nodding, said, "That was most impressive, Uzumaki-san." Hinata, poking her fingers together, said, "Naruto-kun." Sakura was beyond shocked at what she had just witnessed. Naruto, walking over to his spot, picked up the tag no one had seen him placed, and Sasuke felt the chains vanish. Naruto, putting the tag back in his pocket, smiled and said, "Thanks." Kakashi, still glaring at Sasuke, said, "Alright then. Now that you've all sparred and Yugao can give her evaluation to the Hokage, I guess I can give Team 7 the permission slips for the Chunin exams." He then did so, and Naruto, looking at it, didn't even hesitate to fill it out. Kurinai did the same for her students, and Yugao, still smiling with pride, said, "All of you are dismissed, and if you're taking the exams, show up at the academy and get to room 301 at 10 o'clock. All three Jonin then vanished, but not before Kurinai informed Hinata that the two of them needed to talk later. Naruto, once the Jonin were gone, decided to go find Konohamaru, Moegi and Udan and teach them some jutsu. He then walked off, ignoring Sasuke sending a heated glare at him, and Kiba calling out to him, telling him to wait up. A few minutes later, Naruto could be seen walking beside Kiba as the two of them searched for the Konohamaru core. The two were talking about old times and Naruto's training. Naruto was kinda shocked to hear that Kurinai had been telling everyone she could about Team 7's encounter with Zabuza and him becoming the hero of Wave. Apparently Yugao had also been telling people about Team 7's mission to Spring, formerly known as Snow, and how he was the An who saved Princess Koyuki, otherwise known as Princess Gale. He had no idea why the two were doing this, but he didn't mind just as long as no one tried to lie about anything. Both boys blinked when a familiar voice begged, "He didn't mean to bump into you. You see, I was chasing him and he wasn't looking where he was going." A voice either recognized said, "I don't care, this little twerp ran into me and called me a clown. No one calls me a clown." Naruto's sweat dropped when Konohamaru's voice said, "Hey, don't blame me if you wear makeup, have that ridiculous cat suit on and look like a clown." The voice growled and said, "Brat, this is war paint, and I'm about to beat some respect into you." Naruto, sighing, literally vanished, making Kiba's jaw drop. He appeared with his sword held against the boy holding Konohamaru's throat and said, "Drop Konohamaru and I don't find out if you can imitate a headless chicken." Kankuro, shitting himself as this new kid had literally come out of nowhere, dropped Konohamaru, who had stars for eyes, as he said, "Oh cool, boss." Naruto ignored Konohamaru's reaction and vanished again. Appearing in front of Konohamaru with his sword back on his hip, he got a good look at Kankuro. Instantly Naruto agreed with Konohamaru, as the boy did look like a clown. His eyes then caught a hint of blonde. Moving his eyes from Kankuro, a blush instantly stained Naruto's face, as standing behind Kankuro to the right was a gorgeous blonde bombshell with her hair up in 4 pigtails. Tamari, checking Naruto out herself, could tell that this boy was fast, and obviously skilled, as he had gotten behind Kankuro without either noticing. Naruto, shaking his blush away, set his back on Kankuro as he started to take whatever was on his back off. Temari, also noticing this, asked. You're not about to do what I think you're going to do, are you? Kankuro, now pissed, said. This blonde shit asked for it. Naruto, rolling his eyes, said. Actually, Clown-san, I just saved your life, as harming the grandson of the third Hokage would most likely have ended with you being dead and Konoha declaring war on Suna. Personally, I would have lead the charge, as he may be a brat and nuisance at times. But he's my little brother, and anyone who harms him will have to go through me first. Konohamaru, hearing this, beamed, while Kankuro once again shit his pants and asked, That little twerp is the grandson of the third? Naruto, nodding, said, Yes, now your friend in the tree seems to be mighty upset with you. Kankuro and Temari both blinked but blanched when a cold, monotone voice said, Kankuro, you're an embarrassment to the village. A swirl of sand then happened and Gaara appeared. Kankuro, shaking, said, But Gaara! Gaara, not hearing it, said, Shut up or I'll kill you. Kankuro shut his mouth. Gaara, then setting his eyes on Naruto, asked, Who are you? Naruto, looking the boy directly in his seafoam green eyes, said, I believe it's common courtesy to introduce yourself before asking for someone else's name. Gaara said, My name is Gaara Sabaku. Naruto, nodding, said, Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara, nodding, asked, Are you participating in the Chunin exams? Naruto said, I plan on it. Gaara, smirking, said, Well then I will see you during the exams, Uzumaki. He then, turning to the still pale Kankuro and Temari, and said, We're leaving as Baki has procured a room for us. Both terrified people nodded. Naruto's blush came back to his face when Temari turned around and he got a look at her backside. He said, Wait. All three Suna ninja turned and Naruto asked, I didn't get your name. Gaara, blinking, didn't understand, and Kankuro, thinking that Naruto was talking to him, smirked and said, Kankuro Sabaku and I dash. He was cut off by Naruto, who said, Not you, clown boy, I meant the cute blonde. Temari blushed darkly hearing him call her cute and said, Temari Sabaku. Naruto, hearing this, felt his blush darken as he asked, Desert flower? Temari nodded and Naruto, without thinking, said, Damn, whoever named you must have known you'd grow up to be so pretty. Temari, hearing him once again compliment her, blushed harder and walked away with her siblings, a confused Gaara looking between her and Naruto, and a pissed Kankuro mumbling about being called a clown again. Naruto, once the group was gone, turned to Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udan and said, Alright, you three, come on. I haven't taught you a jutsu in a while and I intend to fix that. All three kids gained stars in their eyes and cheered. Naruto, setting his eyes on Ino, who was looking at his entire, said, Thank you for sticking up for Konohamaru, Ino. If you ever need anything, just ask and I'll see what I can do, as I'm sure the old man and even Asuma will say the same. He then turned and walked away with three eager kids trailing closely. Ino, staring at him as he slowly vanished, asked, Was that Naruto? Kurinai, having already listened to Yugao's report on both teams, was now sitting across from Hinata, wondering how to approach the subject she wanted to talk about. A part of her just wanted to be blunt and tell Hinata that she was now dating Naruto and that the Hyuga heiress needed to stop stalking him, as it was fucking creepy. Another part of her knew she needed to break the news gently and maybe get Hinata to start liking Shino, who obviously had feelings for the Hyuga heiress. The third and final part of her was not actually thinking about the talk she was about to have with Hinata. It was focused on the talk she had with one Ayame Ichiraku the other day. Here comes a flashback. Kurinai had been walking down the street after another pleasant and successful date with Naruto, and had blinked, finding herself face to face with Ayame Ichiraku. Kurinai knew who she was because Naruto had told her about the ramen waitress. She had no clue why Ayame was giving her such a stern look, but it made Kurinai feel nervous. Ayame, looking at Kurinai with her arms folded under her sizable bosom, said, We need to talk, Kurinai-san. Kurinai, blinking, asked, About what? Ayame, giving her a plain look, said, About your new boyfriend. Kurinai, hearing this, nodded and led Ayame to a nearby cafe, where she was actually heading in the first place. Both females sat down and ordered something. Kurinai, once their order had arrived, asked, What about Naruto-kun? Ayame, sipping her black tea, said, I'm sure you know about how hard he's had it and how much utter bullshit this village put him through, just because had something done to him against his will. Kurenai nodded as she did indeed know about this. I am spotting this took another sip said. I'm also sure you know just how much this village owes him. Kurenai nodded again as Konoha owed Naruto too much in her mind and anything they did to repay him was barely scratching the surface in what they should be doing. I am spotting this nod also said. I'm not sure you're aware that Naruto-kun is literally the closest anyone in this village will ever get to meeting another god. Kurenai hearing this blinked and said, I was not aware of this. I am nodded and said, I'm sure you weren't. The ninja of this village tend to not pay attention to what the civilians do. It's not their fault either as because of the idiotic actions of the civilian council, the ninja rarely associate with the civilians. Kurenai nodded as this was true, because the civilian council were such avid believers that Naruto was a demon or should have been killed a long time ago. They had alienated the ninja who believed Naruto should have been praised and worshipped for containing the Kyuubi. Ayam said. What most of the village hasn't realized is that about 20-something years ago a goddess walked amongst us. Kurenai's eyes widened hearing this and she asked, Really? Ayam smiled and said, Yes. The goddess is currently still being worshipped by most of the civilian populace. Her goddess name is Ra, Egyptian goddess of the sun. She also has dominion over flames and fire of all kinds, water and ice of all kinds, thunder and lightning and nature. Kurenai hearing this whistled and said, I guess that means I should pray to her the next time I'm out in the wilderness. Ayam nodded and said, Yes. As I was explaining, she walked amongst us for over 13 years, living with us, eating with us, and even fighting with you ninja. Until 12 years ago on the day of her child's birth a great tragedy occurred and masked man unleashed a demon on the village. Ayam didn't have to see Kurenai's eyes to widen to know that the Jonin had figured out that the child was Naruto, and the great tragedy was the Kyuubi attack. Kurenai now shaking asked, Naruto-kun is? Ayam nodded and said, The only child of Ra and by all rights and purposes the most noble person on the entire face of the elemental nations. Kurenai gulped and asked, Who was she? Ayam said, Her human form was someone many people feared and was even the sensei to your friend and Naruto-kun's new sensei. Kurenai blinked and started to think over what she knew and suddenly she felt sweat start pouring down her forehead as she asked, Naruto-kun is the son of the legendary Uzumaki death god? Ayam nodded and said, Correct. Kurenai nearly fainted hearing Ayam say this. Ayam said, Now I myself am a worshipper of Kushina-sama and I have learned that on that mission, the one where Naruto-kun turned the land of snow into the land of spring, he came into contact with Kushina-sama and she unlocked his godly powers, bestowed upon him at birth by Kushina-sama, but had been locked away because of the Kyuubi seal. She also informed me that Naruto-kun now shares 2 new dominions with her, and that in every way possible Naruto-kun is basically a mortal god, who once he dies will ascend into his rightful place beside his mother as the god of Digimon and Poke Girls/Pokemon. Now allow me to explain what Digimon and Poke Girl is. She then explained what they were to Kurenai who asked, What does telling me all of this have to with me dating Naruto-kun? Ayam sitting her tea down gave Kurenai a serious look and said, All of this is to inform you that you cannot be selfish and keep Naruto-kun all to yourself. He not only deserves all of the love he can take, but it's his literal divine destiny and right to have as many women loving and caring for him as possible, or he wants. Kurenai hearing this asked, You want me to accept that he needs to have a harem? Ayam nodding said, Yes, so don't be selfish and try to stop other women who want to and truly love him from doing so. Ayam then standing up said, I will give you the time to think this over. Also if you can talk to the Hyuga on your team as Naruto doesn't like her like that and he finds her stalking him creepy as hell. Ayam then left the cafe with Kurenai pondering things. Flashback over now. Shaking her head, Kurenai looked Hinata directly in the eyes and decided to be straight up with her student and push her on to Shino and said, Hinata, I've asked you here today because I need to inform you that I am now dating Naruto. I did this not to hurt you, nor did I intentionally ignore your crush on him. It just happened and I'm kinda in love with him. Now before you cry or anything, let me inform you that Shino, your quiet and peaceful teammate, has very strong feelings for you and you should see where that could go. Also Naruto doesn't like the fact that you stalk him, so please stop. Hinata, hearing this, gained wide eyes and thought over everything Kurenai had just told her. Hinata, shaking her head, sighed and said, "Okay, Kurenai-sensei, but if you hurt him I'll kill you, sensei and sister figure or not." She then walked out of the tea shop and Kurenai snorted as she said, "I would never do something that stupid, as you'd be the least of my worries." She then blinked when Yugao, Hana and Anko all sat down around her. Anko, looking irritated at the fact that she was wearing actually decent-looking clothes, asked, "Why did you call us here, Nai-chan?" Kurenai, with a devious smile on her face, said, "I called you all here to ask you all a question." Hana blinked and asked, "You called us all here knowing that I still have to find a way to get Naruto to forgive me so I don't have to chase that stupid cat until I'm 60 to ask a question?" Kurenai, still having that devious smile on her face, nodded. Yugao said, "Ask the question already, as I need to go find my student and warn him about Guy and his clone." Every single person in the shop shivered knowing the two people she was talking about. Kurenai asked, "How do you three feel about Naruto-kun?" Her smirk returned when a heated blush appeared on both Hana's and Yugao's face, while Anko seemed to think about it. Anko answered first with, "I think he's cute and pretty badass for a genin, but if he's the one responsible for my clothes catching on fire, I'm gonna beat him like a rug." Hana, still with a blush on her face, said, "I think he's really brave and handsome and he'd make an excellent alpha." Kurenai set her eyes on Yugao, who turned her head and said, "Naruto-kun is a pure genius that comes around once in a lifetime. He's also sweet, cute, and very caring. He's also a natural-born kenjutsu user and has the most lovely eyes I've ever seen on anyone." Kurenai chuckled hearing this and asked, "What would you say if I told you that he's destined to do great things?" All three females said, "We'd tell you no shit." Kurenai rolled her eyes and asked, "What if I told you that he's gonna need strong females by his side?" Yugao quirked an eyebrow and said, "Kurenai, you're already dating him. I don't see why you're telling us he needs a strong female by his side." She had failed to realize that Kurenai had used the plural form of female. Anko and Hana hadn't, and Anko, with narrowed eyes, asked, "Nai-chan, what are you trying to ask us?" Kurenai smiled and said, "I'm formally informing you three that I want you three in Naruto-kun's harem with me. Of course I'd be the alpha, with you three being directly under me in power, but you'd still get to be with Naruto-kun." She chuckled as Hana sputtered, Anko gaped, and Yugao nearly fainted. She now understood why Naruto liked pranks. They were so funny. Across the village, Naruto watched as Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udan tried to perfect the Dragon of the Mortal Flame jutsu. He had tried to teach them another jutsu, but the stubborn kids had refused to learn it as they wanted to learn the Dragon of the Mortal Flame jutsu. So Naruto had agreed, but not before slapping some fireproof seals on their arms and bodies. He had also placed the focusing seals on their hands so they could draw in the power and heat of the sun. The one closest to pulling the jutsu off was Moegi, as apparently her good chakra control allowed her better control over jutsu. He blinked when Moegi actually managed to create a decent-sized dragon and fired it at the practice dummies he had set up for the three. She cheered when the dummy was revealed to have third-degree burns. Clapping, he smiled at Moegi and said, "Good job, Moegi-chan. You've got the first part down, now you have to increase its size, regulate its temperature, and finally learn how to control it." Moegi, hearing this, pouted and asked, "Is all of that really necessary, Ni-chan?" Naruto, nodding, said, "Of course, Moegi-chan. After all, when used to its full power, this jutsu ranks up there in the S-class jutsu." All three pair of eyes widened, and the four eyes of the seasoned kunoichi watching from the trees even widened. Konohamaru asked, "What do you mean, boss?" Naruto, smiling, said, "The Dragon of the Mortal Flame jutsu is only the first level of the jutsu. The second and more deadly level of the jutsu literally opens up a portal to another realm and summons an actual dragon to assist you in battle. It's also more chakra consuming, which is why I have you three learning and perfecting the first level." Moegi, giving him the puppy dog eyes, asked, "Will you please show us the second level, Ni-chan?" Naruto, smiling, said, "Sure, as it gives me a chance to work on a new jutsu that's been floating around in my head." He created a clone that walked into the middle of the training ground. Naruto then took off his jacket and armor to reveal his bare upper body, making the four seasoned kunoichi blush and drool. Konohamaru, confused, asked, "What are you doing, boss?" Naruto, I smiling at him, said, "You'll see in a few minutes." He then removed his gloves and dropped into a stance. Closing his eyes, he flared his chakra and put the fact that Kurinai, Yugao, Enko, and Hana was there watching in his mind for later and started focusing the chakra to his right arm. He, opening his eyes and ignoring the roar of a dragon in his ears, said, "Bear witness to the most powerful dragon jutsu in all of existence." He then surged his hand forward and said, "Fire style, dragon of the darkness flame jutsu." Eyes widened when from his arm a huge pitch-black flaming dragon with hungry red eyes shot towards the pale clone. The clone, quickly blurring through hand signs, said, "Hayatan, wolf of the frigid Arctic jutsu." The clone then unleashed a huge wolf made of ice and snow that had powerful yellow eyes. When the two attacks clashed, the ground literally shook and a tempest kicked up, almost blowing Konoha Maru, Moegi, and Udon away. When the smoke cleared and the tempest settled down, everyone had wide eyes as where the two jutsu had met a deep hole literally cracking with electricity could be seen. Naruto, I smiling at the three kids, said, "That was the second level, and as you can see it's very powerful." All three kids gained stars in their eyes, and Konoha Maru said, "Yash, we must work on perfecting the first level so that boss can teach us the second level." Udon, nodding, said, "Nisama will help us achieve greatness." Moegi, standing with her two friends, said, "We will learn from Nisama and we will be genin in no time." All three kids cheered and got back to their practice. Naruto, still with an eye smile, said, "Man, you've gotta love kids." Yugao, with her jaw hanging open, said, "Kakashi no Baka is an absolute idiot." Enko, in a similar state, said, "I've gotta get him to teach me that jutsu." Hana, like her two friends, said, "With jutsu like that he should already be a chunin." Kurinai, gaping, said, "I had no idea my boyfriend was so powerful." Chapter end. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Peace out.